Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Pyramid Science Foundation live stream. This is Lisa Richards and Charlie Zeese, as usual. Thank you for
Hello.
joining us. Charlie forgot all about the live stream today. He just remembered 5 minutes ago.
And I only remembered because I texted Lisa and Lisa reminded me. So my apologies. If that's why I'm a little unkempt, that's what I was doing there.
You look lovely. I'm glad you joined us, though. We wouldn't know what to do without you.
Yeah, you'd do fine.
Did you have any announcements for today?
Really, just the only one again. We're heading out on the road. Lisa and I will be in Cincinnati, Ohio, at the Body Mind
Mind,
Spirit
spirit.
uh,
Yep.
Expo. I'll be talking on the powers of phi, decoding uh, the golden ratio in Gothic cathedral steeples. So, looking forward to meeting everybody out in the Cincinnati area. And we're going to also be, I think we said, we've got a big list now. We're going to be in Columbus. We'll be back in Cincinnati in the fall. We're also going to be in Raleigh at the Body, Mind, Spirit conference there, as well as the Pyramid Spiritual Societies Movement Conference in August. We're going to be in Allentown, Pennsylvania in May. So we got lots of stuff. Go to our calendar either on any of our websites, Pyramid Science Foundation, Stargate Pyramids, Pyramid Search. We've got a list of all of our upcoming activities. So stay abreast of what we're doing. I'll just put out a reminder. I am also, besides expos, I'm looking to get speaking engagements in a number of areas like engineering, fluid dynamics. I'd love to introduce this concept to them. I'd also, if anybody has contacts in the area of nuclear fusion, I think this technology and this research has a lot to play there. So if anybody has some contacts at those kinds of conferences or people in who are influencers in those fields, please give me a call because this research is just kind of sitting on the shelf and it's it could have some huge implications in these areas potentially. So anyway, that's it for me. Back to you, Lisa.
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually kicking it in gear this year with the pyramid conferences and getting our information back out there as much as possible and making connections with people. We just had a meeting the other day with a guy who's going to help us build some 10-foot high pyramids. So we're eager to get that information or out there and these products developed and do some more research. Speaking of research, that's pretty much my only announcement is this crazy Pennsylvania weather. I don't know if you guys saw my tadpole, the first video of my tadpoles and collecting them and getting ready for my experiments, but they both froze solid. And I was hoping that it wouldn't hurt them, but they're flat as a pancake now, and it doesn't look like there's any development going on. So I think I'm going to have to go dig some more out of that puddle. Hopefully,
Okay.
there's more there. I just haven't had time yet because we're preparing to go to these expos. So as soon as we get back from the Cincinnati Expo next weekend, I'm going to start the plant experiments. So that's going to be fun. So stay tuned for that as well. Sign up for our newsletter, guys. That's where you're going to get all the information as well as the link to our event calendar. But now let's bring on our lovely guest. We've had her here before and we've told you about the different topics she was going to share. We're excited to have Alicja Aratyn back with us again today. She's a renowned dowser. And she's joining us today to discuss the misunderstood frequency of negative green. So if you're in the pyramid world, you know that word negative green gets thrown around a lot. Some people just disregard it. Some people know how important it is to not do so. So that's what Alicja is going to talk to us about today. Welcome, Alicja. We're happy to have you again.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So, Alicja, why don't you give them a little idea of what negative green is before we begin?
Well, negative green is a vibration which was developed. excuse me, I have a problem with my throat recently, a little. So, negative green was first discovered in 1930s in Egypt around the pyramids. And until today, it is not very well researched, just because by many it is treated as very dangerous vibration. But it's not really dangerous. You just need to know how to operate when you use it. It's quite useful if you would like to use it in healing or in recognizing the importance of negative influence of negative green, of geopathic stress on all of us. But well, because geopathic stress really has been named the number one killer for humans, that is very important to know that all type of geopathic stress, either it is a Hartmann grid or Caris grid or any type of grids, and especially crossing of those grids, are releasing humongous amount of negative green in its vertical version, and we will talk about it in a moment. And that is truly, truly very dangerous. Now, because people got scared of the geopathic stress, they also are afraid of negative green. And it's kind of taboo topic, which neither scientists nor just average people want to no more go into and research it. So after Leo Chaumery died because of overexposure to negative green vibration in 1930s, actually he died in 1941. Because of that, then people completely forgot about it. And it kind of doesn't exist. And that's why some dowsers will tell you that there is nothing, there is no such thing as negative green. And they obviously do not understand the nature of it, and they do not understand the Newton's laws of dynamic. But that's the different story.
Well,
So
let me read this a little bit. Oh, sorry. Let me read this a little bit about what I pulled off of one of your websites. It
sure.
says negative green has two aspects, magnetic and electric, and consequently two faces, one friendly, healing, and helpful, and the other lethal, aggressive, and very penetrating. And then I also found that negative green is a carrier wave, and it's actually the frequency used in all types of remote healing sessions, radionics, even the energy of church steeples, as well as pyramid energy. But
Mhm.
the key is to balance both aspects of the negative green
Well,
frequency, and that's what you're going to talk about
mhm,
today. And I wasn't aware of the relations to geopathic stress. You know, I actually just did a podcast on the effects of geopathic stress and how harmful they can be and how to remediate it. Very simple solutions, but you just have to be aware.
yes, in Europe it was confirmed that majority of I'm sorry, that majority of people dying of geopathic stress influence are carries in their bodies a lot of negative green. Now we can say, if we will think about it differently, there are in our body there are vitamins and minerals, but they are also kind of trace minerals. That's right, like arsenic, for example, and all those which are theoretically poisonous to us. But in order to live on this planet, we need to have traceable amount of them to relate in every aspect to the Mother Earth. I called the 12 vibrations which were found. Um, first, it was found three. Then Leo Chaumery died, and André de Belizal continued his work with Paul Morel, and they found another six vibrations between the frequency of white and black, and um, and they found out that each of them has very, very specific qualities, which can be, however, they are theoretically they are detrimental to human body. They can be used for short period of time in small amounts. They can be used to help people.
Okay.
So nothing is really black as black. Okay. And in Germany, so I call those 12 vibrations trace vibrations, which means we have them. We need to have them. We need to balance them if we are lacking them. But there are minimal amount of them in our body, like a trace elements, right? In 1950s and 60s in Europe, especially in Germany, because at that time in Germany they were extremely interested in geopathic stress. However, it was on very beginning stage of being even called geopathic stress. Uh, and dowsers doused what was called cancerous houses, which means apartment buildings. Now, nobody told them in which apartments or condos uh, people live who suffer for cancer.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing they had to do was just douse the whole building, apartment by apartment, and so on one level, because if it's on one, then it is on every level. And then they found out, after comparing the results, they found out that people who suffer for cancer live in these areas which are under the influence either just geopathic stress lines, like Hartmann grid, for example, or mostly on the crossings
Okay.
of geopathic stress, just because they amplify everything what is crossed, amplify vibration of the line. And that's why in every religion system we have a cross. We have a concept of cross because it amplifies what it's supposed to give. So when people wear the crosses, I'm not here to support the idea that we should or should not wear crosses, but someone who wears this cross has vibration which goes at the front of them, and it's amplified,
Mhm.
and it basically measure or compare the energy of the cross of and the body, and either reflects the energy which comes or absorbs it and allow it to penetrate into the body. All right.
Mhm.
Again, it's not that everyone has to wear the cross, but as I said, if you go through the religion system or belief system, even very primitive before Christianity, it's not about Christianity, it's about the symbol and shapes, vibration of the shapes, then you will see it. So that's how in Europe, and I was living there at that time, the interest in geopathic stress grew enormously.
I think I heard this years ago that Germany and possibly Russia as well required that you do this type of analysis before you ever built a home. This was back in the 19th century, I believe. that this was a requirement that
Well,
this type of work be done before you built your house.
well, you see, there is very many ways to avoid it because from medieval times, and we have it until today, this tradition of how it is called, the cornerstone. It
Hmm.
Mhm.
is called differently in Polish. That's why I have to remind myself how it is called in English. Cornerstone.
Hmm.
Because before they built the house, they called geomancer, as they called dowsers at that time,
Right.
to douse this area,
Hmm.
okay, when house supposed to be built. And in the one corner, which there is always one corner which kind of absorbs more, they would put, after digging the fundaments,
Hmm.
they will put the cornerstone in this corner. It had symbolic meaning that we are starting to build the house. The
Hmm.
second was that that we are protected because the stone was touching the mother earth, the ground. So everything what was gathered by it wasn't collected in the stone, in the rock, but it was given back to the earth. Okay, so it was cleared on an ongoing basis. Now, the cornerstone concept lasts until today
Hmm.
because officially, when we open something, there is a ribbon cutting ceremony, which is equal to cornerstone, the
Hmm.
beginning of something or opening something.
Hmm.
And what happens is people got drunk instead of understanding the history of the meaning and why it is so important for us to research objects before we will start, but before we will start to build it.
Mhm.
Now, in China, for example, sorry, in Italy, for example, even before they would put, during the war, before they would allow army to rest for a night,
Hmm.
they would send a dowser, which they had with them, to check the place when they could sleep because it's safe to sleep. Since it was important that next day they will be well rested and ready to fight.
Right.
So so the thing was he was found this spot which is kind of geopathic stress free and they slept on it. Or during the time of peace, they would put the cattle over there and then they would unfortunately kill one cow, doesn't matter which one, just one cow from this horde, let's say, and they would research they would check the liver. If liver was not intact, it means that it's dangerous to build a house, and they didn't build a house at that point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
also I also discovered that they used to do that with ant hills. They would dig up an ant hill and put in the area where they were going to build their house. And ants like that geopathic stress energy. So if they stayed, it was not a healthy spot for you to build your home. But if they left, then you could build there.
absolutely. So ants build their own houses on the crossing.
Yeah. So if you have
And
ants in your house, you have negative energy in your house from
they,
these
they,
geopathic stress.
you see, yeah, we don't understand why, but ants are walk along the geopathic stress. That's why they are marching one after another in exactly the same direction and exactly by exactly the same way because they are like a trolley, they will go along the line.
Yeah.
Okay, and the queen is when the vibration is the strongest, which means on the anthill. That's why when you go to the forest, they couldn't care less if it's beneficial for you or not. They build the anthill even if it's in the middle of the path
Hmm.
of the human walk path which humans walk,
Right.
because that's the proper place for them, not for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So that's why, if you have ants around your house, or if they come inside your house, it means that geopathic stress line is going through this. We just have to neutralize it.
Well, let me tell people a little bit more about geopathic stress so they understand what we're talking about, because it's not just the energy grids like the Hartman grid and the Curry grid and stuff like that, which are the energy grids of the earth. It could be underground running water, it could be fault lines, it could be caves, tunnels underneath you. There's a lot of different things that cause it. And it's mainly a form of radiation from the earth that's harmful to certain things, but it's beneficial to certain things as well. Like the ants, it's beneficial to the ants, it's beneficial to the bees, it's beneficial to cats, but it's harmful to us. And there's a book that I recommend called Earth Radiation by Kathy Bachler. Have you heard of that? She was a dowser, and she went into all these homes, didn't know anything about the people that lived there or their medical conditions, but she would douse their home like you talked about earlier. And she would find the geopathic stress. And for instance, she'd say, whoever sleeps in this bed, the geopathic stress goes across the head or underneath the head area. So this person has something wrong with their head. And almost 100% of the time, she would be correct. And the longer they had lived or slept over top of that geopathic stress, the worse their condition got. So if they just moved into the home, they might just start having headaches from sleeping over it. But after
Yes.
years of doing that, it could turn into brain cancer or
Yes.
something like that.
And also, I don't remember how this condition is called, but when people, moving legs during the night, um, and they get up very tired, it means that geopathic stress goes through the area of their feet, and so on.
Oh,
So whenever the condition is, the first thing is to check for geopathic stress, especially area when people are sleeping or resting for longer time, just because the system is opening up during the night, and it absorbs everything to charge the batteries to be
mhm.
ready for the next day. So, in a sense, we are vulnerable. We are really vulnerable 24/7 for the
Mhm.
frequencies which are coming our way, and it's a matter of our personal vibrational level to accept those or not. But that's the different story. But the main thing is that we need to um, be aware of it and
Yeah.
simply neutralize the house.
Yeah, and that's the solution. It's a very simple solution to just douse and find the clean area of your home and sleep in that area. And people, she would recommend this to people and they would start
Yeah,
recovering immediately.
yeah, but let's face the truth. A Hartmann grid is in our area of the Earth 2 by 2 meters, which means 6 to 7 feet. How can you avoid it?
Yeah. Well,
The
another thing
bed,
I oh,
bed is bigger than 2 meters by 2 meters.
is
So
this an option though? I read that if you put oak cork board underneath your bed, that helps
well,
deflect.
traditionally, you see, traditionally, when warriors, but especially kings and more prominent um, uh, army people, let's say, were traveling in medieval times, they slept on the skins of animals. First, of course, because they were warm, but the skin, when you put it even at the front of your bed, then the first thing which you put your legs on in the morning is healthy space, because the skin of the animal will always reverse the vibration. All right,
Oh, okay.
that's why In my country, when I was small, majority of people would have some type of skin at the front of their bed, like sheep skin or whatever skin they had. Okay, so that's one thing. People would put the mirrors below their bed. Of course, well, in medieval times or later, it was easier than today, but the mirror was reversed. So everything what was coming was also reflected from by the mirror.
Oh,
And
okay.
this way the bed was protected.
Okay.
The next thing is salt. They would spread the salt under the bed because salt protects and absorbs the negative green.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, from time to time, it has to be wiped off and new salt has to be put there. But those are very simple ways. You can also put the big stones around your house.
Hmm.
Even when you buy used house and it's already built, but if you will put big stones around the house, it will to some point protect it because they will connect with the ground. Now, if we can put the stones also inside of the building or our house. Mostly people do it in basements just because it's not very well visible. But you have to first douse the house to find out how the lines are going through your house. But
Hmm.
because those stones do not touch the ground, then they act like containers, so they absorb negative green, but they cannot release it safely. So with time, they become a source of the negative green because to take the next portion, they have to let go of some. All right. So from time to time, dowsers will come check, or if we are dowsers, we can do it for ourselves. Check the amount of um, or the level of contamination of the stone, and if it's high, then you take the stone, put it outside on the ground, so the Mother Earth will take all this vibration and then you bring it back to the house. But then you also have to know how to position the stone because the stone has two sides, of course. And because we live in polarized part of the universe, therefore everything has positive side and negative side. Now, negative side, which absorbs, has to go down, has to touch the floor, and positive side needs to be on the top. Now, how you find it, either you will take a pendulum and hold the pendulum over something. I don't have the stone here, but
What kind of stone are you talking about? Is there a certain stone?
the best is the river stone because it does not have any edges.
Oh,
It's round. It's not doesn't have to be round, but should be soft on the top.
okay. A river stone. So just go to the river and any stone in the river.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, because every type of edges will shoot the energy out. Okay,
Okay.
and water smooth it down. So so you can hold it over the stone. And as I said, let's pretend that that's the stone. Okay, I can hold it over the top and say nothing because it will show by the movement to the right that this is plus. And when I will turn it over, it will, I'm sorry, it will start to move in opposite direction. So this is minus. Everything will have plus and minus. If it has two sides or two
Okay.
ends. One will be plus, one will be minus.
Hmm.
Okay, so normally we would, in old times when we would douse houses, we would draw or actually use the paint to put line here, it's minus, and plus here to is plus. So if the owner will take, let's say, once a week or once a month, the stone by himself, and he's not a dowser, out
Oh yeah,
for a few hours on the ground
to
and
charge.
bring it back, they know how to locate it, that the minus has to be down. If you don't, if you are not a dowser and you want to do this, now I will pretend because I wasn't prepared to do this presentation, but let's say that's the stone and let's say that's the hammer.
Okay.
All right, you can use your own hammer. if
Okay.
you if you have no way to find out which side is plus, which side is minus, then you take the hammer and you bang against the stone, and the plus will always come to the top. Always. That's the rule.
Oh. Huh.
That's the physics. All right, so you mark the plus here and you mark the minus here, and then you know how to position the stone
Okay.
in the specific area of your house.
All right.
Okay, so those are the simple homemade methods. The other methods are, if you have a cable, to get rid of any type of negative or not beneficial, because negative is not, from the scientific point of view,
Right.
it's not necessarily electrical and not necessarily harmful, so not beneficial energies. And let's say that that's the end which goes into the jug,
Okay.
not the one which goes into computer. This is my computer cable. Then you can create the circle. Okay,
Hmm.
just like this, and then you plug it in. This circle will keep away all the negative, non-beneficial vibration which comes with the electricity inside of your house.
Oh, that's good to know.
Right,
Should we do that for all of our electrical
for
cords?
everything,
Okay.
everything. I have it all over my place with my cables, who I use it from time to time to
Hmm.
charge, like iPad, iPhone and things like this.
Because of the
But I
crossing.
also on my iron and radio and TV and everything what operates on electricity. You can do this, and it will help you to do this. The other thing, which, because I'm not sure if we have much time really to go into this, but I would like to show you at least two slides from my presentation.
Sure.
Um, so the
Do you want me to bring the screen share up, Alicia?
yes, please, because
Okay.
it will be
And
easier for me.
are you able to turn your microphone up just a little bit? Somebody was asking in the comments.
Me,
Yeah.
I'm Max.
Okay.
I can just
Can you just sit a little maybe closer to
let
it?
me get my face closer to
Yeah,
this.
that's better. Okay, let me bring up the screen share.
Mm, okay.
Okay.
All right. I don't see the sign screen share, but
You're
maybe
already you're already on the screen
yeah.
share here, so
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
yep.
Okay, so I call it a negative green vibration enemy or ally just because of two aspects of it. Whoops, it doesn't want to, unfortunately, it doesn't want to move. Uh, shoot. Okay, maybe I will stop screen sharing. And if you can send me one more time the invitation to share the screen.
Just at the bottom, the little up arrow with the TV.
Yes. Okay, let's see, because sometimes it does work when we are. Oh, what what do I need to do?
Just click that screen share at the bottom. Yep, there you go.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great, because I cannot see it. Um, Now, how do I get rid of this echo?
I don't hear an echo, but I can mute myself if that helps. Let me see.
Oh, you don't see the echo. If you don't hear it and people do not hear it, then I'm fine with it. Okay,
It
so
it resolved itself, Alicia. I was hearing it
yeah,
as well, but it's not
okay,
there
okay,
anymore.
yeah, I don't hear it right now as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you remember, because some of you were on this previous class or meeting when we were talking about the pyramid, around the pyramid, that is the location of the colors, which means east, red to the east, violet to the west, green to the north, and then this is this vibration which they didn't know how to call, so they called it negative green just because it is on opposite side from the green, which in Europe we called green plus and green minus, to differentiate between them. But it negative green belongs to invisible spectrum of light, and here we have visible spectrum of light, and here, what they found in Egypt, we have invisible spectrum of light. The
Are you
main,
sorry, Alicia? Are you advancing your slides? We just see the main slide so far.
main slide, which
We
means,
just see the title
oh,
slide.
so it means that it doesn't show.
Are you clicking on the ones on the? Oh, there we go.
There.
That's on.
There it is.
It's on there now.
Now we're seeing your
You-
chart of north, south, east, and west colors.
Okay, so you know what? I will just enlarge this, and then we will go through my presentation. It may not be so elegant, but it will be visible, at least visible. Okay,
Okay.
so I will make it bigger.
I can adjust it on my end. You don't have to make it bigger. Just we didn't
Ah,
see
okay,
any of your slides at all. So
right. So you see it now that
yeah.
there is north, east, west, and south, and then the light. Now, on the top between east and west, the light is from red to violet. And this is a visible spectrum of light, which means what we normally see with our physical eyes. And below, toward the south from both sides, is invisible spectrum of light, infrared, ultraviolet, black, and white, which are really invisible colors, vibrations rather, and they go. Uh, but but the science decide to allow people to treat them as visible, just because when we chemically process those vibration or objects vibrating those two, they become visibly white and black, but black and white is not visible in fact, just because when you look through the window you don't see white light. That's right, you see all the colors but not white, and we have white light around us during the day. And then they call, do you see my cursor going up and down the screen, or
Yes.
you don't?
Yes.
Okay, so they call it negative green because it was on opposite side of it, and they were scientists, they didn't really know how to call things. Okay, and then just because here we have the kind of oval thing due to magnetic field which stretches the ring, but in fact there is the spread of light found by those three scientists during 1930s, was kind of on the circle. So you have the same situation on the circle, just with equal distance or unequal distance to the center of the circle. And then again, here you have visible spectrum of light and invisible spectrum of light. Now, when you remember the location, main location of those colors, and you will kind of rotate it 90 degree, that you will see them flat kind of, then you will have the same infrared, black, white, ultraviolet, violet, and which means it starts with reds or infrared and so on. And then there is negative green in the middle, yes, because we have rotated this this vertical view into horizontal view. And when you will put many of them together, then you can see that negative green is the vibration which has the shortest distance to the center, because all objects release the vibration through the center. So in the center here we have negative green. That's why negative green will be predominant vibration from any of those rings put flat. Now in pendulums, this concept of those rings is used in, for example, ISIS. Every therapeutic pendulum, either gold light or white light, is connected with the concept of rings, from the location of the ring, or based on principles of sacred geometry about location of the colors around the ring. So you have the Isis, which was found in Egypt, and it has 4 rings, and then we have other types of Isis, and then you have Nova with the pyramid inside, and we're talking about it in our previous class or meeting, and then Jet Pillar, which again gives us those rings to allow the pendulum to be strong. However, it is relatively small and light pendulum working with white light. And then again, they wanted to, in their experiments in the labs of France, in 30s and 40s, they wanted to, and I cannot use really any tricks here, so I cannot show you this, but they wanted to cut off this invisible spectrum of light in order to build a pendulum which will only have a positive, which means white light here. Okay, when they cut it in half and took away this, it happened that all those right away jumped here, which really confirms the idea that nothing in nature disappears, it only changes its location. So this concept was used by André de Belizal and Leo Chaumery at the beginning to build humongous pendulums. At the beginning, humongous, because they wanted to research the negative green vibration. And as you can see, those are the elements of Osiris. So those two, again, if we would have the presentation fully operating, then those 4 will move here to show you that they overlap each other. Now, what would be the vibration which comes from here? negative green because this negative green comes to green and go to negative green and so on. And therefore, the strongest vibration coming from here is this one, amplifies by 3 others rings, and therefore this pendulum releases negative green as a primal and most important vibration. And we will come back to it in a moment.
So,
The same concept is used in universal pendulum. If you are be interested, then we may have a separate class about universal pendulum, just because it's complex. Lisa, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to ask, so that pendulum that you were just showing us, is it used to detect where negative green is, or is it used
Not
to
necessarily.
remediate and heal
I
the negative green?
I will come back to it in a moment when we will
Okay.
talk about two aspects of negative green. It is used in both
Okay.
and in both senses. Now the other pendulum is Karnak, which I didn't show here, but negative green, but I have it, so I will show you in a moment. And the other one is really used in, or you can use a universal pendulum to detect those vibrations. And now let's talk about two aspects. So what we have with negative green, in fact, it applies to everything. In fact, this is every color has two aspects. We don't talk about it often. First of all, because only very small part of scientists are interested in pursuing this topic. And secondly, because dowsers are still scared about electrical wave. So we have, but in fact, we have two types of waves or aspects of every frequency. So there is electrical one, which is normally marked in red because red is alerting color. So don't touch me if you don't have to, or if you don't know how to work with it. And this is unhealthy aspect, but it is unbelievable useful if you want to send vibration on distance. And then the other aspect is is horizontal, which is blue, and it's healthy. And if we are talking about healthy aspect of negative green, then there is no healthier aspect but this, then healthy aspect of negative green. There is no vibration which is so healing and so much effective as healthy aspect, which means magnetic aspect of negative green. Let's look at it, how they work really. If we will talk about if we will see at the wire, and I showed you the wire a moment ago, how we can remedy it. But if that's the wire, and the wire gets connected to the electrical outlet, then automatically first there is electric aspect, electric envelopes or spirals around the cable on the all length of the cable. If you think that it's only close to this, no, it can be a lot stronger close to the jack in your wall, but it's not. But it really is given by the whole wire from the jack into your computer or anything what you use. So in split second there is another field created which is magnetic, and magnetic, which is called horizontal, goes this way because it goes horizontally. This one goes this way, it like this, and like this. So that's why it is called vertical, because it goes up. And that's why what Lisa said, there is negative green in unhealthy aspect found, for example, in faults, just because two pieces of ground create a friction when they move. And that's why you have this, I don't remember how it is called, but you have this fault going throughout the whole continent of United States. And it's very unhealthy to people to live close to it, because those two parts of United States, let's say, or on continental plate, moves and
Tectonic.
create
They
and
call them
create
tectonic plates.
a tectonic plate. Thank you.
Mhm.
And they create an energy. That's right. That's why when we are cold, we move our hands like this, because it creates the energy and we can heat up our hands. All right. So definitely moving something against something creates the energy. And this is unhealthy, harmful aspect because it goes up. And this aspect reaches our houses. This vertical aspect. That's why geopathic stress is so unhealthy. This aspect goes along the wire. So if this is underground water, then this aspect, healthy aspect, is very rarely obtainable from it by humans who are high above the ground. So quite away from this underground water stream. And it's all because if water flows here, and it normally flows surrounded by very hard, like either rocky or muddy environment, then the outside layer of water creates this friction between the ground, which is stable, and water, which moves.
Mhm.
And that creates the electrical aspect of, which means harmful aspect of negative green. And that's why it is harmful. By the same token, the pipes which go under your house very rarely creates electrical aspect of negative green, because there is not such a power in the water, there is not such pressure, and there is not so very often change of the diameter of the area through which the water flows. So don't be afraid about your cables, your pipes, but we are talking about the water which naturally flow inside the ground.
And I heard
Now,
too that when it's raining and it creates more underground water to flow faster, it's going to cause more geopathic stress to accumulate because of
absolutely,
that.
absolutely, yes, yes, because there is more pressure in the water, because this place will not expand just because there is more water. So the water has to push even stronger against the solid surrounding. Now, everyone knows about Easter Islands, of course, and on Easter Islands, as we know, there were found those figures, which people didn't know why they are there. Well, of course, dowsers are very curious people, so they went there and they started to research it. So, what happened was that those figures are releasing negative green vibration. That's why they are facing water, not inside the ground, but they were facing water and put mostly around the island. Very few of them were kind of in farther distance from the shore. Now, what they also found is that it is not true that they have only, for example, only head. There was whole figure, but it was hidden in the ground. Now, what's the idea about it? What was the idea about it? It was a protection. So one aspect of protection was that the figures of different heights were sending this negative vibration, negative green vibration, to different distance, on different distance. So they created the zone of negative green and not negative green. The kind of harmful vibration, not harmful vibration. That created in invaders, especially during the night, they this created the different moods, and therefore they were either very quiet and slept when they came into the quiet zone, but they were very aggravated and loud when they were kind of coming through the negative green zone. And therefore the people on the island could know a lot earlier in advance that someone is approaching the island. They also had what was also found, there was found small pieces of stone with different shapes on them, and those shapes were actually neutralizing negative green on this spot. So people living in the ground, on the ground, they weren't affected by the negative green vibration. Only people who were invading or getting closer to the island. It was extremely interesting research, which was, of course, just disregarded by official science at that time.
Of course.
And nobody talks about it right now because who cares? We have bigger problems right now than Easter Islands. But all this research and discoveries of done by dowsers were extremely interesting. Now, as we talked, and please ask this question, we have two aspects of negative green, or every vibration, but let's say about negative green, just because they are the best known due to the vibration, due to the geopathic stress. So electric aspect of negative green is very harmful to almost all life forms, almost all, because we were talking about, for example, ants. That's right. So they are beneficial to some forms, such as ants, cats. That's why cats always sleep. That's why cats are called healers, because they sit, if you will observe people who have health condition in specific part of the body, you may see that cats lie down on those people in this specific area of the body. They withdraw the negative green and any negative vibrations from this, from the person, and they heals. That's why, very unfortunately, but that's the fact, very many people with cancer buy cats, and sometimes they go through 3 4 cats before their life comes to end, because cats die first, because they absorb humongous amount of negative energy into them. They are healers. They are beautiful creatures brought to us to help us to go through our predicaments in life. Termites like also this, and ferns. in my previous country, which is Poland, but also in many other countries in Europe, fern is the only um, plant which is allowed um, in the bedroom, just because normally plants would absorb the energy, absorb the oxygen, but ferns absorbs the negative green vibration and negative energies. Therefore fern is very beneficial to people, and fern also releases the negative ions which help us open up the lung area and upper help with upper respiratory system conditions. So fern is really very good. If fern is very, very hard to maintain. So if anyone has fern which is growing like crazy, it means that it grows over negative green, which means geopathic stress or any other source of negative green, electric aspect of negative green vibration.
Can I ask you this?
Yes.
Do you think, like I live in an area with a lot of geopathic stress. We have
Mhm.
ferns all over our woods. We have large oak trees. We have underground water. We have spring water. Um, do you think healers, because we use this for this negative green, this electric negative green frequency for remote healing, do you think we're naturally drawn to these, that we know how to transform and utilize this energy, that it's not harmful to us, the healers that are using it? Or do you think it's harmful to the humans that are using it for remote healing?
It's harmful to everyone,
Okay.
just because, as I said, we are vulnerable to the vibration which comes uh, our way. Okay, that's why um, healers normally wear something which protects them. I like to wear things which protects me just because I don't have to think about protecting myself. I don't have to be afraid that something can get me. All right. So there is many different choices. I will show you a few, but it doesn't mean that you have to, buy them from us. But it's. I would say that you as a healer, better look after your own energy field first, and then about your clients.
Well, I actually stopped doing healings and readings for people because I just felt drawn out after doing all that, like,
Yeah.
so that explains why, you know?
Yeah. It's just simply people who are sick come to us to unload.
Mhm.
That's the only purpose, really, which makes them come to healer.
Yeah. And
And
then they constantly come back for more and more and more and more and more. So,
oh, absolutely, because it's survival skill.
yeah.
We all have it. So we need to think about ourselves first. And
So,
that's why recently I had this course, and it's available on website right now, which is called Magic: The Principles of Energy Work. When I talk about 20 rules of magic, and how they really apply to life, because we just were taught and kind of programmed to be afraid of it because it's very powerful. But anyway, let's come back to it. So electrical aspect possess very strong mumifying effect, and that's why, without going into details right now, when they open when they found and open different tombs in Kings Valley, um, of Luxor, they found mummies with the same hand positions,
Mhm.
just because this shape releases negative green. So it helps mummifying on the top of preparing the body and all this, oils and emptying the the stomach area and so on. But on the top of this, there was one more thing which helped mummifying it, and it was the position of the mummy and position of the hands. And that's why first people who were opening this, after opening the tomb, they were kind of bombarded by the humongous amount of electrical aspect of negative green. Most of them died because of that. And we can talk here about the curse put on the group which opened King's Tut tomb. Practically three or four of four people died unexpectedly. The only one didn't die because they had, as he claimed, he had Atlantis ring on his hand, and that released so strong positive kind of or beneficial energy that it kind of overwritten the amount of negative green, electric aspect of negative green coming from the, you just like open the Pandora box, really. It also dehydrates, which is, of course, the aspect, very important aspect of mummifying, and it also preserves tissues. That's why when they started to open the or unwrap the mummies, they found real tissue there, which was very interest, interesting to them, to the scientists. And it can be detected in EMF, ULF, which is ultra low frequencies, and all global grids. Now, if we will talk to magnetic aspect, which is healthy aspect, then we can say that it's healthy and very beneficial for living forms, balances and centers our living organisms, and it is present in all power spots on Earth. So that's the magnetic aspect. It's basically, there is nothing negative about this except for the name of this of the energy in general. Now, interesting thing is that when you go to the store and you buy the food, it has this uh, those codings here.
Perfect. Yeah.
That's right. And when you will, not everything you open and and eat right away or repack. Many things stays in your fridge or freezer and so on. So if you will just draw the line across this, it will counteract the negative green vibration coming from it, which vibrates from it, well, not necessarily to kill all humanity on the world, but for scanners to read the vibration, right?
Mhm.
So, we can, but we don't have to talk always and see always the ill. Um,
Well, are you saying that so barcodes like this give off negative green? So people that work in a grocery store, for instance, scanning these all day long, are they harmed by the negative green
well, not really,
then?
because they are not holding in to their face. They actually put it the other way, and they scan it through the scanner.
Today.
So they slide it and go and next and next and next. So they are not exposed to it. But I'm talking about the food which has a barcode on them and lies for days in your fridge.
Oh, so the food's absorbing the
That's
negative green.
right. That's
Okay.
right. And surrounding food as well. So
Okay.
when you will draw the line along, you will neutralize it, and it's not negative green. Green does not comes out of it. Oh, so that would be the end of it.
Okay. So
Well, can you touch on pyramid energy and how negative green affects pyramid energy?
yeah, in fact, that's where I was going, Lisa. You know, I've done and Lisa's done studies where we've had a controlled plate of fresh fruits and vegetables, and you know, we'll do a controlled experiment, and it's going to preserve inside the pyramid. Now, if I'm understanding you correctly, and I'm not sure if I am, but is it the negative green energy that's doing that? And if we try to remediate that, will those preservative properties of the pyramid go away?
Well, there are three phases in the pyramid. So from the top of the pyramid to one third from the tip, there is a positive area, which means that there is negative green in healthy aspect. There is a negative middle one, which is negative green, and then positive, and it goes negative, positive, negative, positive. That's why on the ground level, on the
Hmm.
very bottom, there is a negative green which vibrates down. That's why in Egypt they did what they could, what they knew at that time, to neutralize the pyramids
Hmm.
by making this indentation of three or five, I think 3 degrees
Okay.
of
Hmm.
the walls. That's
Okay.
right. Negative green, though, goes not straight from this through the axis of the pyramid, but it deviates kind of about 5% from the axis. All right.
Okay.
So I remember many years ago when I was writing about the description of the pyramids on our website, when we were selling the corners of the pyramids. And this woman said, "Why are you writing about it? You're the only one." And she was really, really angry with me that I'm writing about it, that you shouldn't sit straight in the axis of the pyramid inside, but you have to be slightly away from it.
Okay.
Okay. From the center. And she said, nobody talks about it. So many people know about the pyramids and they don't talk about it, and whatever. And I said, listen, I present my truth, and you can believe it or not, and so on. And she finally gave up. um, but at that time I had some of my own notes, very old notes from the classes, and that's why I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'm so sorry. So because negative green goes straight from the tip to the bottom, then you don't sit in the middle, but you sit away about 5 degrees away from the center to
Okay.
avoid this direct flow of negative green,
Okay. Okay.
right? um and so yeah, so that's how the energy that's how the energy flows.
Okay.
Well, see, I like sitting right in the middle with my back completely straight, right in the line of negative green, and I think that's because I pick up more information that way because I'm using it that energy as
Oh,
remote
see,
healing and
so thank you for reminding me about this, because um, negative green in its electrical aspect is the most penetrating vibration known today,
Wow.
which means there is no way you can. I hear this echo again. Do you hear it?
I hear it. Yeah.
Okay. So I have no idea how to get rid of it, but uh, so what we're talking about?
Is it still there? Because I just muted Charlie and I.
Yes, yes, I just forgot what I was talking about.
The negative green. I like to sit in the middle and absorb all that energy.
So this is the best on the world carrier wave. All right. So if you, for example, that's Osiris pendulum, okay? And we send it in two parts always to people, so they will used to that it, and then when it doesn't work, it has to be disconnected, because one element of it is equal to vibration of this one element is equal to the perfectly healthy human body cell. In order to overwrite it and correct it, you need more than one. That's right. That's why it is called. It is divided by two, two and two, just because it's not. It's not still not that strong that it's harmful when it has two and two elements. But when you only when you work, you connect them together. Okay. And as we said, the vibration which is predominant here is negative green. All right.
Okay.
So if I will say send, if I will hold it over, let's say, solar plexus, Charlie's solar plexus, okay, and I will say balance yellow, or balance Charlie's solar plexus, because if I will say yellow, there is many parts of the body which operates on frequency of yellow. So if I will say balance his solar plexus through the frequency of yellow, balance solar plexus, Charlie's solar plexus, um, uh, then it will vibrate like it gives him right now negative green. Now what gives him yellow, I'm sorry. Now what it does is, in this case, when I say, because it has white light plus negative green plus ultra plus infrared and ultraviolet. So if I would like him to get only yellow, then negative green works like a carrier wave, which means the negative green jumps on it in a sense, and they travel together to Charlie's solar plexus. And then negative green does not enter the body because I didn't say so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but the yellow will slide down and go into the body because I said so.
Okay.
Right?
Does the
So,
same thing happen then as a healer? I was not aware of the negative green that I was
no,
using for
because
this. I was just focusing on the good that was going.
no, because you didn't say so.
Yeah.
Now, if the shape is strong and it releases something, it releases regardless of what you say. That's why we disconnect them, because my whole house would be filled with negative green. That's right. So they are disconnected. When you know what to do, then you connect it and you give the request, because it is a mental pendulum, which means it follows your request.
Okay. So if you do something to your pyramid, let's say, your meditation pyramid, like
Mhm.
I just put the picture up of the Giza pyramid with the small indentations in each side, which it actually has 8 sides, not 4. That's what we're talking about. That's how they remediate the negative green. But if we do that to our meditation pyramid and then use it for remote healing, is that negative green energy no longer there for us to
So what
use
you
to
can
send the
do,
signal?
what you can do, because of course you will not do those indentations, That's right, because it's hard for a user to do it, to bend it. So what you can do is you can in this in the center of the side, each
Mhm.
side, mark the half of it.
Okay.
Just simply divide it by half. That's the central point.
Okay.
Okay, from all sides, and you can even take the electrical tape, anything what sticks,
Okay.
Hmm.
okay, and just do the round around it to glue it to this point, and that will counteract the negative green.
Hmm.
But if we do that, will
And
it counter? Will it? Will we no longer be able to use our remote healing? You know, we won't have that energy for remote healing anymore.
because it does not affect the central,
Okay.
it only affects the bottom part.
Okay.
Okay,
Um,
that's why um, normally people should sit inside the pyramid this way, that their body or the chair is in the king's chamber, which means on 1/3 of the bottom,
Hmm.
from the bottom. That's where when sun rays hit the walls, while I'm talking about Cheops pyramid proportion 51, 51, 51, then when it hits this and meets together in the axis, there is always steady temperature of 20 degrees Celsius, and it is the most powerful energy. Right? So if you will put your chair this way, that it's slightly away from the central, from the from the axis, but still on this level, that would be the best idea. That's where we put the glasses of or containers of water to be energized, stones to be energized, and people, or even massage tables or any type of recliners, let's
well,
say.
you know, I have what's called an apex amplifier. It's a plate that sits about 1 foot below the peak. And you said that top portion of the pyramid is always beneficial negative green, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, it's generally speaking beneficial energy.
well, what about you mentioned this last time you were on capstones. If there's a capstone on a
Yeah,
pyramid, that does the same thing for negative green remediation, right?
absolutely. But you see, and we did it at the beginning, but the transportation is very expensive for clients because you have to give them this and this capstone. You have to make. We did make pyramids which were solid
Yeah.
and to put on the top. So there were corners plus the solid pyramid, which was at least like this. So the box had to be sufficiently bigger, filled with something what will prevent pyramid from bending and so on. So the transportation is very, very demanding.
Yeah.
And that's why we decided to not to do it anymore.
Oh, for you used to make meditation pyramids, but you don't anymore because of
I
that?
didn't do meditation. We didn't call them meditation. We
Okay.
just call them uh, just, and we sell them until now. We are sold out, and pyramids are mostly, the corners are mostly sold in during the summer, at least in our case.
Yeah.
So we'll make another batch, but again, those are Cheops pyramids, not
Hmm.
as you do.
Yep.
So this is Karnak. That is another pendulum which releases negative green. And again, it comes in two parts. And then you just simply call them. And what creates negative green or amplifies are those two
Okay.
amplifiers. When they touch each other, they amplify the energy. There are lenses which are to work and so on. And we also make those neutralizers for the homes and offices and so on, based on the concept for Easter Island, but using the Atlantis symbol of protection, because that's what was famous in Europe, since, as I said, only one person did not die on the effect of negative green from opening Tutankhamun grave. And they come as rings, and this is for houses to neutralize geopathic stress and things like this. And it's just because we cannot really expect all people to be dowsers.
Yeah.
So,
But
so
really, I think more people are coming in tune with
oh,
the natural energies around them, you know?
absolutely, and it is very very fantastic thought and realization right now that more people, because more people um, become energy sensitive, then they also understand what is going on with their body.
Yeah, absolutely. We
And
have we have a question real quick, Alicia,
yes,
about protecting yourself with a quartz crystal charged by the moon. If you're doing remote healing sessions, would that help, or would that protect against negative green, or would she need a different crystal, or what do you recommend for remote healers?
well, telling the truth, my view on healing is kind of differently, because mostly I was taught by my friends from above about the energy and things like this. So in very aspects of the soul and spirits and things like this, is different. I'm not sure why the crystal should be charged by the moon, not by the sun, because normally uh, moon is a women energy, is a negative energy from electrical charge point of view, and it's rather to rest. When you want to use the energy of the moon, you shouldn't look at the moon. You can look at the moon through your closed eyes. So the energy comes to your eyes, but not directly, because it may make majority of people, it will make sleepless simply.
Oh,
So
well, they also say, the word lunatic is derived from Luna, the
absolutely,
moon. That's why men have facial hair to protect absorbing that moon energy.
mhm.
So
Well, Charlie, it's time to grow the beard. Um, I I'm not sure, because crystal quartz crystal is not self-clearing. So then you will have a lot of work with clearing the crystal. And theoretically speaking, and I don't want to offend anyone, okay, but I came from different approach to energy, based on Egyptian and Chinese and so on, uh, coming from Europe. So that's why I see things slightly. Also because of that, I see things. When I came slightly differently, when I came here, I was surprised that everything is like a Hollywood movie. You know, everything has to have a positive ending, because it has to be uplifting, and it's not,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately. All right. So what I would do, if you need to have a stone with you, however, I'm not sure why to have a stone when you heal people, but because if you have it in your hand, then how would you use this hand to do something? I mean, one hand is off. And in dowsing, you use both hands. One holds the pendulum and one deals with energy.
Well, she mentioned she puts it in her pocket, but I know some people, they
Okay.
do that in their pocket, in their bra, in,
There
a
are,
necklace.
so from what I understand, or what I was told, there is only one stone, but I can be mistaken or can be other schools, which is self-clearing, and it's citrine.
Oh, citrine.
So I have a plenty of citrines, humongous one, big ones, in my place because it absorbs, but it is self-clearing. Um, the quartz, you need to be very careful with it because it has such a humongous high intelligence that it doesn't really give it out very easily. So it's not that, oh, I will put it on the ground and then in few minutes it will be clear. Not clear quartz. That's why when my friends were talking to me about Atlantis at many years ago when I was interested in it, one of the things they told me is that people right now are not um, reliable enough to give them all the quartz which were on Atlantis. So, or colors and shades of quartz. So that's why we're given some quartzes, um, quartz crystals, but not all of them because we can do more bad than good with them.
Hmm, interesting.
So, the way I clear crystals, and I have crystals which are like 15 kilos, which means like 30, 40 pounds in my place, then that's how they told me to do it. I put it on the east side of the house, not exposed to the light, any light. I mean, not in darkness, but not especially that, sun would operate or moon or whatever, and put the sage over it
Oh,
and just douse how long it should stay there.
Hmm, interesting.
But then, I constantly hear about it, and that's why I don't talk often about it. I have my group of people, which is called Scientific Dowsers Group, and I'm kind of a little bit more open about it. But normally, what I was taught is just contradictory to many things.
Yeah.
Many things which are, especially on this continent. In Europe, it is not so much contradictory to the popular beliefs, but in North America, as I said, it's a Hollywood version of everything.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's so nice to get other people's perspectives on things as well because
exactly, but also misleading. It
Mhm.
can be misleading because when I was teaching people, my group, about the egregores, and I wanted to check what they talk about egregores on the internet. Uh, it just creates goosebumps
Yeah.
because egregores are so great and so good, and you can create them, and they are everything but good. So
Oh.
either there is a politics about it. Politics, I'm not talking about government, some agenda behind
Oh, there is,
mis
absolutely. Yeah, that's what we're all tired of, the lies. I mean,
Absolutely.
most of
So
our
there
schooling
is,
was
there is
lies.
but the problem is that we all, because majority of people from your audience, and many conferences, and generally speaking, wanted to advance their life on spiritual level, are very gold-hearted people,
Mhm.
and they come to everything with open heart. They don't even think that someone can lie to them, because
Yeah.
if you are spiritual, you don't lie.
Yeah. Well, we can see all the lies around here in the United States,
So,
especially. So I
yeah,
think more people are coming to spirituality and wanting to try things like this, because that's the only way that we're going to find out what the real truth is, by trying things for ourselves. You can't trust anybody else but yourself. You know,
yes.
you
So,
can't trust anything that we're saying. These are our experiences. These are our truth, and your truth will be different than ours. You know, that could be
yeah,
possible as
but
well.
you see that the problem is that then you need to know both sides. That's what we were talking before we went
Yeah.
on the air. That's right. That if you know both sides, if you have idea about what both sides presents, that's the different story, because you can, you can then make your own decision. But
Yeah.
if you presented only one side, then that's the only side you take under consideration.
Yeah. Well, it was awesome having you here, Alicia. Why don't you tell people where they can find you? And she has different courses. She teaches a lot about dowsing, and you can connect with
Yeah,
her.
so you know what? If I can share the screen one more time, then I will just simply show this one page.
Okay.
Oops, I
Yep.
think I closed it already. I closed it already. Okay. At some point I showed here my, I'm sorry, I showed here my website, but um, my website is intuitive.dowsing.com. Intuitive from intuition, dowsing as a modality, intuitive.dowsing.com. And if you would be interested in scientific dowsers group, um, we have next meeting next Wednesday, and it is dedicated to the topic of, it will be called the story of your soul, just because I will present the story of the soul which I was taught. And it's again completely different than than popular idea about the soul, but but my
Okay.
group will understand it. And you can call. I do the sessions, healing sessions, and
Okay.
and I teach your YouTube channel, intuitive.dowsing.com, intuitive dowsing. So you can find us
Yep. The
if you
link is
would
in the
just.
description, everybody. So you can find Alicia on her website and email her or call her about any questions that you have. But thank you so much. We're going to have her back next time, probably talking about the Lecker antenna.
Okay, fantastic. It's a fantastic tool to work
Okay.
with.
Great.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Okay.
All the
Thank
Thank you for
best,
being
all
here.
of you.
We
Lots of
appreciate it.
love to
Thank you.
everybody. See you next week.
It's my absolute pleasure to be here.